What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in. It's the Brass Ring Media Podcast for Friday, January 10th, 2025. How's it going? Thanks for joining us. I'm Zach Haydorn, your host from Brass Ring Media. That is Tyler Sage, your other host, also from Brass Ring Media. Tyler, what's going on, man?
Hey, Zach. It's good to be here. Excited to talk some wrestling and, be with everybody here on the live chat.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun show. We did a lot on WWE on our Tuesday night show. This show is live twice a week, now streaming live right here on the One True Sport YouTube channel, and at various places on X or Twitter or whatever you call it these days. But we also have a afternoon show, and this is that. We spent a ton of time on WWE on that other show. We talked Raw, we talked Netflix, all sorts of stuff. We'll touch on a couple WWE news topics today, but other than that, it's going to be a very AEW-centric show. Coming out of what I thought was a pretty good episode of Dynamite. And so I want to pick through that and piece through kind of where things are with AEW right now. Before we get to that, well, first of all, welcome on in. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're watching us live on YouTube, appreciate it. We're the Brass Ring Media Podcast. We just migrated all of our live shows to the One True Sport YouTube channel. So they've been just tremendous partners. If you're not a YouTube person and you want to check this out, or you're on the road a lot, we also have a Brass Ring Media podcast feed where all these live shows land. So if you want to take this on the road with you or to wherever, you can subscribe to the Brass Ring Media Podcast on your favorite podcast app. Otherwise, our home for live shows is on YouTube. You can, on One True Sports YouTube channel. Also, we do have a YouTube channel ourselves. You can subscribe there. More content on Substack. That's our newsletter, and so much more. So I'll get into some more pitches here in a little bit. Brass Ring Media and membership, and what else is going on over at One True Sport. But let's start off with Vince McMahon, because today the SEC and Vince McMahon came to a settlement on the hush money payments made by WWE via Vince that weren't, correctly articulated within, I guess they violated SEC rules and regulations, and they came to a settlement today. Then, as a result of that settlement, Vince McMahon is fined $400,000, and he's going to reimburse WWE for a little over $1.3 million for that issue. The press release sent out by the SEC says here that McMahon violated, this is quote, McMahon violated the Securities and Exchange Act by knowingly circumventing WWE's internal accounting controls, and that he directly or indirectly made or caused to be made false or misleading statements to WWE's auditor. So that's the official kind of rule from the SEC. Vince is going to pay a little money, but exactly. The issue itself for this part of his issues legally is over. Vince McMahon, though, took this as an opportunity, man, to put out a statement, kind of a statement that I think is meant for kind of broadly, and we can dig into it here in a second, but this is what it is. He posted on Twitter today. The case is closed. Today ends nearly 3 years of investigation by different governmental agencies. There's been a great deal of speculation about what exactly the government was investigating and what the outcome would be. As today's resolution shows, much of that speculation was misguided and misleading. In the end, there was never anything more to this than minor accounting errors with regard to some personal payments that I made several years ago while I was CEO of WWE. I'm thrilled that I can now put this behind me. So you said it, man. It's a slap on the wrist for Vince McMahon in terms of a punishment. I think that's why you do the settlement, right? Like I think the bigger like story out of this like hush money payment financial issue with him in WWE is that all the all the other stuff came out as a result of this. Like reporting started happening, journalists started looking into it, people started asking more questions, other victims came out of the woodwork. Like, so you're totally like burying the lead by just talking about this, because this issue, this this case is really just the tip of the iceberg as to what went down as a result of this case, being filed with the SEC, and all that other stuff still out there. All that other stuff is still there. Vince McMahon still being sued by Janelle Grant, still a federal investigation into some of her allegations. So all that's still there, but this chapter is closed, for better or worse. Your thoughts on this and Vince's statement, and anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to commit crime, make sure it's white collar. It's like
make sure it's white collar. Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to choose one, that's the one to do. A lesson that's been told multiple times. Just another chapter in that story here. Second thing is my personal anecdote of finding out about this today. I was on ESPN.com, and it says McMahon settles with SEC, and my dumbass thinks that Vince McMahon had an issue with the Southeastern Conference in college sports for like a split second, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, never mind. So that was like a fun moment for me to like, all right, not as serious. I mean, for me personally, it is obviously for Vince stuff. But yeah, I mean, Vince is Vince. He's a charlatan. He's a salesman. I think you got both of those in that statement of him trying to, get exonerated on everything and move back into the media space with his billions of dollars, liquid dollars that he has ready to launch on them. So until he's 6 feet deep, or in an urn on somebody's shelf, I guess probably nobody's shelf, right? Because no one's going to want those remains in their house. Until that's the case, he's always going to be there hovering in the background. So it's not the last time you and I are going to talk about him, was the moral of the story. But yeah, not surprised. And he doesn't in there, he doesn't admit to any wrongdoing in the official settlement, agrees to not agree, basically, or whatever. Right. There's legal verbiage there. So, it is what it is. But I feel really nothing personally about this. That didn't even pay more. Like, that's like what the payments were, 1.3. So basically just paid it twice, which is kind of funny to me. They had to pay
and the fine. Yeah. So but $400,000 to a billionaire is
that's like us going to our piggy bank.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and it's not over. He wants people to think that. But,
totally. It's just beginning. I mean. Janelle Grant did her team responded to this and put out a statement on the settlement themselves. And it says here, during his time leading WWE, Vince McMahon acted as if rules did not apply to him. And now we have confirmation that he repeatedly broke the law to cover up his horrifying behavior, including human trafficking. The SEC's charges prove that the NDA Vince McMahon coerced Ms. Grant into signing violates the law, and therefore her case must be heard in court. While prosecutors for the Southern District of New York continue their criminal investigation, we look forward to bringing forward new evidence in our civil case about the sexual exploitation Ms. Grant endured at WWE by Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis. So, very, very much like a legal type statement, but they continue to put the pressure on, and they're going to use this as, hey, okay, yes, it's small in terms of the size of the punishment, but that he did this, so they're definitely going to use that in terms of trying to lay out a case, against him. So
yeah, and this only helps too. You'd rather have a conviction if you're the Southern District of New York for the trafficking case, the sexual assault case, all that stuff. But this is still like an admission of wrongdoing at some level, which isn't good for Vince,
right?
When it comes to that, if it gets to anything. That's not a plus in his column.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's not. It's not. And yeah, it's again. It might not be. It may not be serious in terms of punishment, but as this kind of response statement states, like the confirmation is what could hurt Vince down the road. So lots more to come on that, of course, but it is big news. It is Vince McMahon, and obviously we want to cover that in as best we can.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's move on to AEW. But before we do, we'll take care of a little business here. This is the Brass Ring Media Podcast, guys. We are on the air with this show twice a week, as I had mentioned, right here on the One True Sport YouTube channel. Super pumped to be partnered up with everybody at One True Sport and all the great listeners and viewers that we get to reach now. It's really an exciting time for us. So thank you for joining us. If it's your first time, we really do appreciate it. As I mentioned, Brass Ring Media is our own entity, so we do have a Patreon where you can catch all of our live content, or excuse me, our free content. But also you can become a member, a Brass Ring Media member. We do offer tons of perks for our members, and hope that you guys jump on in and take full advantage. It's only $4 a month to subscribe to our stuff, and so as members, you get a member-only show once a week. That just went up yesterday for members this week. You get all of our pay-per-view and our PLE review shows. So that's AEW, that's WWE, and any other big ones that we may cover. You get access to our Discord, where all of our members hang out, and also some specialty written content and some other specialty audio content as well throughout the month. So a lot of value for just $4. So hopefully you guys give us a shot. Your first week is free. You can try us out for a full week and fully see what that experience is all about. So that's at Patreon. It's patreon.com/Brass Ring Media if you're interested in checking that out. And I hope that you are. We'd love to have you. As for today and live during the show here, the live chat's open and rocking. Zach's in there. Eve's in there. Spark just joined, so it's going to be a fun conversation today once we get into some AEW stuff. Of course, the super chats are open and ready for you guys. We'll try to monitor the live chat as best we can, but if you want to make sure that you get on the show today with a question or a comment or a topic, drop us a super chat. Any contribution helps, and super chats are definitely the lifeblood of what we do. And so if you're able and willing to toss something in the tip jar today, that'd be amazing, and we thank you in advance for that. It's a big help, and we certainly appreciate it. All right, with that said, let's move to AEW. Let's talk the return of Kenny Omega. Let's start there, because I think well actually, let me take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I'm curious as to like your overall take on Dynamite this week, because I thought it was a pretty like buttoned up show start to finish. There were issues that I had with it, and we'll go through those, but that was a pretty smooth show in terms of like defining your talent, defining what like the key feuds are right now. You're building up next week's show in a variety of different ways, even shows into the future. So I thought that they checked a lot of boxes, and I thought that it was an enjoyable 2 hours. Without any like major glaring like really like issues. Like there wasn't like an Adam Cole promo where you're just rolling your eyes the whole time.
Yeah. So
I overall I just was like, wow, okay, like this is it only did 580 something thousand views, but it's an example of AEW kind of just righting the ship and presenting that and trying to build on that. And so for that reason, I thought it was a really successful night for that.
Agreed. Best wrestling show, start to finish, of the week. We'll see about SmackDown tonight. Obviously, SmackDown has potential to be pretty newsworthy with like who gets transferred or who doesn't, etc. But even that is like now that's 3 hours. Like it's feeling more like a slog of like, okay, what is going to get us there? More than anything. So I'm pretty confident Dynamite's going to be the best, for a wrestling fan, the best show this week on TV, which is something to keep track of, right? I mean, that was a lot of its appeal early on, that Dynamite was, bar none, the greatest show for a wrestling fan on television, probably until, Best Friends, MJF and Adam Cole started. That's like the signal of when that was not the case, and then
yeah.
WWE was heating up majorly. So, but yeah, I mean, even with everything you said, I agree with. Like, you're presenting your stars consistently. That continued here. If they're not in a match, they have promo, they have a video package. They are continuing to be there. Whether they have a dumb name or the gimmick for a match is stupid, like, it still makes sense, like, in the context of it, right? Because, like, how much does WWE like beat us over the head with dumb names, Butch, right, as an example, or horrible gimmicks? I mean, fatal four ways are really stupid and they're really contrived, but we already like accept them, right? And I think AEW is in that process of like, hey, let's just like plow forward on stuff that's pretty good in maybe a box that isn't perfect, and we'll get there. And that's what WWE does. And it's there. So
Yeah. Well, Spark is in the chat here and says, "What's wrong with Pete Dunne?" Nothing
oh
wrong
yeah,
with Pete Dunne.
nothing. Yeah, the name was stupid.
The name.
Yeah, like Cope is stupid is equal to
right. Yeah, exactly.
Butch is stupid.
Yeah,
but as a name, yeah, not as a character.
right. No. I agree. I just thought it was a good. Overall, it was just a really strong show, start to finish. And again, there's one major piece that I just did not like, but for the most part, a good show. We'll get into that in a little bit. But Kenny Omega returns. This is where I want to heap like most of my praise on AEW and on the show is with the Kenny Omega return. Like, I think that they made a big deal about it. They mentioned it a couple of times during the show. They talked about the match with Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty. It was in the main event segment, which I think is like a small thing, but it's important. When you think back to like some of the biggest returns that big stars in wrestling have had, the one that I always think of is Triple H at the Garden. Like that, it's in the main event. It's in the main event slot. Like, you put the big stuff in the big time positions, and then you need your big time guys to deliver. And I thought AEW recognized that here. Would have been like, I do feel like 6 months ago, this could have been like in the middle of the show for whatever reason. And it just kind of would have been there and then bounced around and then, kind of fades into the background. But this was saved. They like built the show up around the Omega return and then delivered it in the main event. And I thought Omega presented better as a star in that environment. And so I thought it was really good. I thought Omega cut a good promo. Like, I think that was the one that he needed to cut at this point. Like, this is what I've been doing. It's been a rough go, and then we go from there. The fact that he's kind of lined up against Don Callis again is a little eye roll inducing, but Kyle Fletcher is a fresh talent to have across from him in the ring. And I think that can prove out to have some really good, legs to it in terms of a feud, in terms of matches. So I'll take the Don Callis stuff because Kyle Fletcher is kind of at the lead of it. But outside of that minor gripe, like, this was a good night for Kenny Omega. And as I said on the Tuesday show, you got to go with him here. Like, he's not going to have more momentum than he has right now. I hope that Tony Khan recognizes that. And if it means pivot. What do you think of Kenny Omega?
Yeah, I loved it. I still this is like, since you went all positive, I'm going to heap my 2% criticism on it and then go all positive. I do think, just like as a note, if I'm a producer of wanting this to work, and I do, as a big Kenny fan, as an AEW fan, etc.
Yeah,
I do think there's like a little bit to be desired on like Kenny's not going to wrestle tonight look that like can tie more to his character, because like him with his hair down is like way different than him with his hair up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, so there's just like a lot of stuff there that I think he can just like add on to this character. And yes, maybe this is not the place, would be the comeback that I would give myself of him explaining, and that's the end of the criticism, because like him explaining like, hey, here's what happened. I almost died. I like really almost died.
Right. Like, I truly almost died. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I like went so hard, and I had multiple relapses, which is true with this disease. Like, it was a real thing. Even when we were talking about, like, That's why, like, just you and I, but most people, I feel like, there wasn't like, hey, when's Kenny coming back? It's been 9 months. That's normal injury time to come back. Like, it was truly like a gift if he comes back. And that's how he feels about it. That's how the fans feel about it. That's how AEW seems to feel about it, right? So, like, laying out that on a promo was like a Bryan Danielson type moment. But, that was great in talking about it. I like throughout the show the presentation of like, coming up, the still of Kenny. Very WWE-esque on Raw, where it's like, this is probably the main event. Like every time you see a segment, it's about to go, like, hey, stick around, Kenny's still coming up. Like, I don't think they've ever done that in the history of that show. To like be like, hey, here's this thing coming up. It'd be like maybe 1 segment ahead of like, hey, it's 8:30. So at the top of the show, like MJF's here, he's going to talk. And he talks at 8:30 or whatever, right? But not basically since the beginning of the show. I mean, it was more heavy in the 9 o'clock hour with that presentation. But so I thought all that was great. From like a storyline perspective, yes, it's like ideal for me and you for him to take on Moxley at Revolution, win it there, and do a run here. Yes. But you can still do everything because the ideal for us still is Kenny to win the title, and then you have him and Okada at All In, or Okada's the champion for a little bit, and then you have Kenny beat him at All In. Whatever you want to do there, but that's got to be between those two guys for the world title in the main event, right? That's the only way that's like the biggest show of all time in AEW history is if you do that there with those two guys.
Yes.
That's like the reason to sign Okada, and Kenny's healthy. That's what you do. It feels like we're on track for that. So if you're gonna like do a little bit of a thing here, it makes sense, right? Who's the last person to beat Kenny in AEW? Takeshita, right?
Takeshita, I think, yeah.
Yeah, who's a member of the Don Callis family, who's a big-time superstar in Japan right now. I mean, what's the guy from Bushi Road talking about, like, oh, I hope, like, when his contract's up, we'd love to have him be the main guy in our company, basically is what he said.
Yes. When they signed him to, like, this, like, weird, like,
like a two-way contract sort of thing.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to like drop the whatever. I think it's the never open weight title that he has. Like he doesn't have to drop that right away. Yeah. They want in like, on Takeshita.
Yeah, which makes sense. He's great. So having Takeshita and Fletcher opposite of Ospreay and Kenny, I mean that's a co-main event for Revolution, right? That's your second match to build the card. Like, here's my $50. I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch Moxley and Cope. We'll talk about that. But that's like another match that like the world title probably should not be the main event of that show. It should be that tag team match. So you're building huge multi-person matches. Does that remind you of any company that's on fire currently? It does. So that's fine booking for me. If you're going to do that, you then pivot him to Moxley and or Okada beats Moxley and you get to All In where we're in a very ideal AEW booking-wise world. So last night or Wednesday night, it's not Thursday, gave me a lot of hope for the big-time decisions of big-time talent in AEW in 2025.
Well, and not only do you have the big matches, you have, like, actual context around the big matches, too, Like, you've got, like, different – and now if you go to, like – if those are the two big matches at Revolution, let's say they're – that tag match that you just brought up, that's got a lot of depth to it. It's got history. It's got emotion because Kenny's coming back. It's got good in-ring. Okay. That's the sweet spot you're looking for in AEW. And too often it's just the one piece of that. If the other match is Adam Cope, blah, against Jon Moxley, I like that match as a championship match on the show. That also has the depth you want from a storytelling perspective. Two characters that are over, in their roles, and that's also going to be a solid match in a different way. Yes, but solid nonetheless. So you have like just good. You're just building the blocks, and I think that's why I'm okay with Don Callis because like you do have the backstory, and yes. They've been attached to each other for like 4 years at this point. Like like between the 2021 run as champion and then the fallout from that, like, and then the time off, like it's just, they've been at odds for so long and there's been no definitive end. and he was gone. So you can't really do that. But now, so it is a little like, okay, really, Don? But like, it makes sense. It does make sense, which is why I'm willing to, kind of give it a go here. Does it worry you though that, how do I put this? Does it worry you that Kenny is not like immediately back in and I'm not trying to lead the question here, I'm genuinely asking, that he's not back in at the top right now, like jumping right back in, like for as much as we praise the return, is it more of the same to kind of put your top star just back in a mid-card, in a mid-card kind of feud? Is it more of the same from AEW to do that, or it remains to be seen?
Yeah, I would counter that with, what would you classify Roman Reigns? What's he doing currently in WWE?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Is he going? Is he taking on Gunther? Is he taking on Cody?
No, he's not.
He's fighting for a necklace between family, yes. But if there was a Don Callis necklace, would this be much better? I mean, I think both are good, so I want to make sure that's there. But it's one of those things. It's like we talk about Swerve post championship run. Like, his characters had stuff to do that feels impactful and meaningful. That's not always the case, right? You don't want to be Adam Page. You don't want to be Joe. Obviously, not be on TV very much for other reasons. But that post title run here has been a hard thing for AEW to figure out. MJF, right? He hasn't had a good story since Bryan Danielson. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's totally fine if you're not going to do it right away. If it's not going to be like, hey, I'm back, I want everything, I want my title back, I'm going to take it from the guy I took it back. That there's like a lot of through lines there too, of like their roles are reversed, where one's a heel, one's a face, and they flip that. It's like, hey, it's on Max. You watch the first show ever, and the guy who hit a DD, whatever his move was called back then, was it the oh my gosh, the paradigm shift? Was that the name of the move?
Through the table, through the glass table.
Yeah, and on like the big stack of casino chips, right? That was like the final
that's right. Yeah.
Yep. You could show that and be like, hey, I'm back, and I want that title from this guy. That's like a good story too, but you don't have to just like, if you're not going to go for the world title, this is like the next best thing. And I think it's, he wants to be booked like Roman. He said that. And, the good thing about Tony is, like, for his big stars, if he's into it, he'll basically listen to whatever they say. That's what this feels like to me. So get ready for Tyler to compare Kenny Omega's story to Roman Reigns' story. For you, Zach, if you need to like counter that with anything, but I think both are good currently. So I think they have a lot of similarities, and they work for guys that, are not going for those titles. Now, do both need to probably be around that title soon? Yes, but they don't need to in this exact moment.
Man, that's one of those matches that we're never going to see, that I would love to see. Omega against Roman.
Yeah.
This just total sidebar.
That's like if we could all get to North Korea, and we would want to support that anyway, but they have like that 300,000 person arena stadium allegedly. That would probably be one to fill that place. Level of match between those two.
Well, for better or worse, WWE will run anywhere these days. So,
that's the next step.
Never say never.
Yeah, they'll Bishop be the liaison for that.
Yeah. Oh man. Let's go to a super chat from Zach, and thank you so much, Zach. Man, appreciate you, and thanks for the support. Brass Ring Media member there from day one. So thank you, Zach. Zach says here, yes, Kenny should probably win the title, but what about Darby? They're clearly still pushing that match. So I don't honestly, Zach, like, yes, they're pushing that match, and yes, that's kind of like, if you're reading the tea leaves, like, that's where you're going. But this is the pivot that I'm talking about. Like, first of all, I don't think that even if Omega wasn't back, I don't think I would put the title on Darby. But with him back, like, sometimes you just pivot, man. Like, you pivot just like that is like the business of the wrestling business. Like, yep, you set up Darby, you've got this idea, you're going to go there, and hopefully you can get there fine. But if something else happens, you pivot. And right now, like, Darby now is colder than he was even when this whole thing started with Mox. And he's lost matches, and he's just not on Omega's level, like in terms of like what's happening right now today. And so, a good faith attempt, if maybe Darby can save it. Like maybe by the time All In comes around and you got to finally decide, hey, okay, we got to pull the trigger on something. Who's hottest? Maybe Darby wins out. But right now, at the very least, Tyler, I would keep it open-ended, like, and not decide this. But I'm putting my stamp on. Sorry, Darby. Like, go climb Mount Everest, because like this is Omega's company now.
Yeah, I mean, you said it very kindly. I would, tell the same thing to Darby if he was here in front of us. Like, yeah, he's not Kenny Omega, and he's not a guy that you need to move things around for. He's not a guy that you should really even have as a destination for your world title. I think that downgrades you as a company. I just like what he is and what he does currently, right? Like, he's not over like he has been. Orange Cassidy, like, was more over, I would say, at certain points in his run than Darby is currently, right? Which is not like a good comparison of guys to go there. Like someone like Swerve is a guy who kind of is in that Darby and Orange Cassidy mold, right? And just got over like crazy with the crowd, and they went with it, and it worked out, right? So I'm not saying it's impossible, but when this is here, it just is what it is. And like also, yeah, I mean, on TV every week is him getting pushed down some stairs, like. I don't know.
That was a brutal bump, man. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, crazy bump. So, he's the king of the crazy bump, and he's always a spot for him on there, and I like Darby. But one thing, too, is, like, if you put your, like, Booker hat on, there's the show next week in Cincinnati, which is interesting. We'll talk about that. But Mox is getting cheered like crazy. He's from Cincinnati. So be prepared for that. Be prepared for that, everybody. So interesting show for that case, but that's like a quote-unquote big branded show. Then you have just big shows coming up, right? You have the Grand Slam, which is in February, right? At some point. I don't know the date. And after that, you have Revolution.
Yep.
And then presumably you have another thing before Double or Nothing. And I'm just thinking like Moxley matches, right?
Yeah, because Dynasty is in April, so I think they're going to run that back.
Yeah. So, like, you do need to keep that story going, because if it's Hobbs, Cope, Darby, then somebody else, like, yeah, you need to just have a couple guys ready, like kind of warm and ready to go. I think that's what this is. If you want to get crazy, the booking thing to do here would be, if I could say this to Zach, I'm sure he would like it, but I don't think it's good long term. Is you somehow, get Okada to get the anytime opportunity from Christian, which seems doable in some sort of capacity where he sells it to him. To get Hook beat up after he loses the Hook. You have Darby beat Moxley, and then you have Okada come out immediately and beat him, and he's champion for 2 minutes. And then you have Okada as the big, giant a-hole heel, and then Kenny comes in and saves the day. Like, obviously you could work that out to sound a little better, but like as a long-term thing, that works for every character involved.
Yeah.
But, that's the only way I would see Darby winning a world title this calendar year, based on everything else around him.
Yeah, and the thing with Darby too is that, and I like Darby. I think Darby's is a strong, kind of character for the show. Is a good character for the show, good star for the show, homegrown guy, like all that's good. But like, you can tell the Darby to the world title story at any point in time. Like, it's not something that you need to like strike while the iron is hot type thing. Because you can heat it up anytime you want it. Like anytime you want to go there, anytime you need it, that's there. Because he's such a great like underdog fighting from underneath babyface with the bumps that he takes and the style of his matches, and then just him as a character. So you could always pull the trigger on that. You're not going to get this moment with Kenny again. I mean, he's 40 something years old, 41 years old. You just don't know, and he's like, I don't want to say he's self-sabotaged himself, but like he's not been able to like cultivate like strong momentum like within AEW. There's been times where it's peaked, but it's not a consistent like, all right, he's presenting as this tip-top guy. So he is now. And, you know, I think people have been dying to, AEW fans in particular, have been dying to see Kenny get that run on a national television show in the United States. And that has to take precedent over Darby. Mm-hmm. And again, I think you're saying the same thing. It's not a knock on Darby. Yeah. It's just,
I mean, this is like a thing where like Darby should be like the lead guy on Collision, like in my opinion. Like he should be appointment viewing. He's that kind of character. Him and Orange Cassidy. You take like a Swerve, like these type of guys who like they can own a show and like they'll have Darby beat Okada for the international title. Like that's a huge moment for him. And we've seen what he's done with the TNT title. Yes. So I'm not like here to crap all over Darby. He's an important character on the show. And that's like what you need to do to grow that show is have those sort of guys and have Darby truly be the Sting, the Undertaker of the promotion that is always on that secondary show and always something that, you know, he's around, you know, hey, if I go to the show, I'm going to see him. And we're going to have every 8-year-old kid who's going to be, you know, in 20 years, their favorite wrestler is going to be Darby Allin. And that's an important place you need. That's an important thing you need in every promotion at every time, at all times. So.
Yep. Very much so. Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. Good question. Good comment. As always. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about Cope here for a little bit. God, I can't believe that that's a real thing. It says it on the website.
Yeah. Man. Oh yeah. I showed some friends yesterday because there's a Manchester Orchestra. They're a band.
Yep. Big fan.
They have an album called Cope. So I was at music trivia with my sister, and she had that sweater on, and I was like, "Oh, I knew it was obviously for the album." I was like, "Oh yeah, you got the Cope merch early." And she's like, "What?" And then I went to shop AEW, and there's a shirt called Cope like on the listing because it just says Cope, but then it's like Cope dash, and then like rated R, rated FTR, blah 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 blah. So there's a shirt on. It's probably still there. You can look it up right now. It's Cope. So yes. The copium is real.
Oh man, what like at some point someone's just got to be like, "Yo, Cope."
Yeah,
that's about enough of that. That's okay. It was funny.
We're assuming this is his idea more than anybody else's, right? Because that's like, that's who totally. Like I'm the guy in the meme in the hot dog suit. Like we're trying to figure out the guy who did this. Is basically where I am on the Cope thing, but
I just like, I mean, like, I think Butch might be better than Cope. I really do. I mean, like,
oh yeah,
and that's saying something. Like, it's really saying something. Anyway, Copeland. This was another like highlight of the show for me. From an AEW being on the right track point. Like, I love that promo. Like, that's a babyface challenger promo, and finally. Like Jon Moxley has like a challenger coming for him that, you don't think he's going to beat him. Like, I'm not sitting here thinking like, okay, Copeland's going to beat, Moxley for the title, but there is like genuine and authentic credibility with Copeland. That's just not there with Orange Cassidy, like it's just not there. Even with Jay White at this point, it should be, but it's not. But man, when Copeland's in there talking to Jon Moxley, there is like, you kind of got to drop what you're doing and go, oh, okay, wow, this is like a, it's I wouldn't call it a dream match, but it's like that's one of the matches you sign Copeland for, right? To do something with Jon Moxley. And I thought Copeland hit all the right notes that like, hey, I've been through the meat grinder in this business. There's nothing that you can do to me that I haven't seen before. I'm not like these other dopey baby faces in the Dark Order. Like, I've seen a thing or two in my day. So like, let's go, let's do this. And I just thought it was like really an effective promo from him. Like maybe the best thing he's done in AEW to date.
Yeah. And they haven't had a singles match ever, right?
No, ever.
Because he came back, the 2019 or 2020 Royal Rumble? Either way.
2020, but Mox was gone.
Yeah. So that's like a lot of equity there as like not the 75th past WWE match that we've seen.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the best thing about this, everything you said, I agree with, obviously. Like another small thing that I think is so important here is there's not a promo after a 20-minute match where he's out of breath and just there's that little different thing, right? Like he's out there and he's commanding that crowd who was a bad crowd. Where were they at?
I don't know.
Like it was like live chat, they've been bigger. It was like bigger size than it has been. But like even for Kenny, like those were people sitting on their hands the whole night, and he was not having it. He was like, "Did you hear it?" Whatever. Like he was like, "You cheer now," like and then commanded it and got cheers out of people. Just like that's that veteran savvy he's got too. But not being winded, being out there, being serious, not sweating after it. Just all that is like key to showing.
Well, he didn't look old either. Like because he wasn't like heaving in and out and all like
He
looked spry.
Yeah, it's like he got a little bit more fuller in the face because like whatever Ozempic type thing he was doing to then get that body was also like eating all his face meat. So he got some of that filler put back in or something like that too. But
oh my God.
But yeah, all that's important,
I'm
right?
not gonna
For the character.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, the hair's still atrocious, but hey, that is what it is. For Cope.
Do you think he's trying to grow a mullet?
I don't know. He's in the weird in between no matter what. So that's always a hard phase to be in. I know. For those that are old time days, I used to have super long hair. So there's that in between phase is rough. So I respect out to Cope for that. But yeah, promo's great. And do I think he's going to win? No. But he's in that zone of like him and Darby are perfect baby faces that you want to cheer for that have a very slight possibility. So when that near fall happens, that Moxley's really been good at as a heel here to do that 2.99. Not even going to do the Excalibur line, but the near falls have been really good by him as a heel. So yeah, we're just really good. A good opponent. You're getting the most out of him as a 51-year-old guy. Christian's always there to join him or whatever. Have like that interaction's always there and good. So yeah, this is like a perfect use. And when he first came back, Cope, I can't believe I'm saying that. It felt like it didn't matter that he came back. And now I'm more on the mindset of like, yes, he does matter that he's back. Another guy after this, who you can have on mainly Saturdays with FTR, running roughshod. Yep. And then like your dispersal of star power feels pretty good and like a reason to watch another show, which is like would be the biggest thing for AEW to do is like justify having two shows.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Okay, let's keep going on some other stuff. So let's hit something that I really didn't like on the show, and that was the use of Will Ospreay. I mean, great match with Buddy Matthews, no question about it. I mean, state of the art Will Ospreay style match, but like, dude, I gotta like. And I'm not even really big on this. Like, oh, he went this long with this guy and that long with that guy. Because, I mean, look, the Bears beat the Packers. It happens, right? Like, you can have these really bad teams beat really good teams in sports on any given day, right? It happens. But with Ospreay, I just think he's just so important to the future of the company from a star perspective. And he's got untapped potential there. And it stood out to me more than other times, him going like 50-50 like this with Buddy Matthews, who just look, he's a good in-ring wrestler, but he's a jobber in AEW. I mean, whatever, like it hurts to say, I guess, but I mean, that's what he is. I mean, he doesn't win matches. He's not presented as a guy to even worry about in the ring. That's not the presentation that he gets. And so to see Ospreay like have that much trouble with him, like I think over the long haul, stuff like that will hurt him, even though he's having really good matches. And so I just was like, what are we getting out of this? Like, okay, you're getting this good match that means nothing, and Buddy Matthews still lost. It's not like an elevation of him. And in the end, in storyline canon, Ospreay just looks bad. And all for the sake of a good match. And I just, that's where you have to draw the line if you're Tony Khan, especially when it's somebody like Will Ospreay who has such a high upside. So what did you think of that match and Ospreay in general?
Yeah, I thought the match was good. I was not concerned about this as you are, which is interesting. If I can analyze why I think you're so concerned about it, do you know why, like deep inside? Because I think I know the reason why deep inside.
Why what?
Why you don't like this as much as you don't as a booking decision. You know, everything you just laid out, the presentation, the opponent, going 50-50.
Yeah.
This was, I don't know, math is hard. 6 weeks ago, the exact opener on an episode of Dynamite was Adam Cole and Buddy Murphy on his like win 3 in a row tour.
That's right.
And it went like kind of the same way. Obviously, a much worse match. But he did beat him, and Buddy like just owned him throughout the match, the way Seth Rollins owned CM Punk, kind of like that sort of match. And we did not like it, right? Which maybe in your mind, and I think not totally unjustified, you're worried like Will Ospreay's kind of in Adam Cole reclamation project mode, and that's like, at least in Tony Khan's mind, is like, hey, reclamation mode, let's have a good match with a good wrestler who always loses. That's like a good thing in the mind of Tony Khan. So I think that's your big beef with it, whether you knew it or not.
That's fine. That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, I guess my rebuttal to you is going to be, I'm not going to argue like, hey, is this a good decision to do with like a top, I guess, what is he currently, right? Is he a top 6 guy in your company, Will Ospreay?
Probably. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because, you know, you got Mox, you've got Kenny, and then is he your 3rd guy currently of like star power draw? And then like you would think Okada in the mind of Tony Khan, like as he's going down his list. And then, yeah, Copeland and Swerve maybe is like rounding out the 6 of guys that are featured a lot.
Yeah.
So at least right now,
that's probably accurate. Yeah.
At least in Tony Khan's mind, I don't know if that's like what I would list out currently as my choice, but so yeah, is that like a good thing to do with that type of guy? Certainly not. I think it is for Tony Khan. My rebuttal to you is going to be like, how did you feel about the stuff in the main event? Like, did you feel is that go into this whole show here? Like, do you like him in that role? And you can like kind of forget about it, because I think with Tony Khan's like, hey, let's have a good match to open the show, have for some new viewers that can have like see this guy wrestle, a good wrestler, and then in the end, it doesn't really matter from like it's an exhibition of like the skill of this guy, and then in the end is like what really I care about this character. Now, is that good? I don't think so. I think your argument is sound on that. I think that's like the Tony Khan mindset of booking Will Ospreay on Wednesday.
Yeah, the main event helped. I'll say that it did help, kind of like, but I mean, it helped more for me as like, okay, we just ridded the show of the stench of that like first segment, so it helped. I guess my like broader point with this is like the Rock isn't going back in the day when the Rock was hot, like in his prime. Or Steve Austin or Triple H, any of those guys. They weren't going 50-50 with like headbanger mosh, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
That would not happen. Like, because they are protective of their character and their momentum. And so like, that just wouldn't happen. And obviously Buddy Matthews is a better professional wrestler than either of the headbangers. I can't believe we're talking about the headbangers. But they're like similar in terms of like where they are in the narrative, right? Like, and so that's more the issue. Like,
I think the headbangers are more impactful than Buddy Matthews is.
What's that? Yeah, probably.
The headbangers are, at least they're on TV most weeks.
Right. Yeah. So that's where like, so you're right. Like, I think that, I don't know that this kind of thing, one time is not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt Ospreay here. But like, my point being is just that you're sacrificing, because all this was we want to have a good match, and you're sacrificing the upside star power of Ospreay in order to do it. And that's where I got to question. That's where I got to question, like what that decision was.
Mm-hmm.
Zach dropped us a super chat, and I'll toss to you again, Tyler. Zach says here, I thought they justified it well after the fact. I'm assuming you mean the promo, Zach. And yeah, I mean, they tried. I don't think they landed the plane on that. I think the main event was more effective at that. Tyler, go ahead and take any of that and run with it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you on like the broad strokes here. I just think this is like to give you like what Tony Khan was thinking is not like my favorite rebuttal in a debate. That's like getting the wrong side of the argument in debate club and then having to argue it more often than not. But yeah, it's just I think he's just not like a top guy right now, right? He's not going to win the world title for a while, probably not this year, the way it's going, if Kenny's healthy.
Yeah.
So now it's like Tony in his mind being like, okay, what do I got for Will now? Because he's my number 2 babyface. He is who is it? I don't know. He's my CM Punk, right? Kind of hard to book around that guy currently. Or Seth, right? That's a hard spot that like the guy who brings stuff in and you want to get good stuff for him. And like, I think this is a safe play by Tony to book the show. And we'll just, do your Ospreay watch list and see what he's doing the next couple of weeks to see kind of if it's improved or not improved.
Yeah. This will be a good thing to watch going forward to see kind of what happens.
Is he doing anything next week? I can't remember the card. Is he doing anything next week?
Not currently.
Okay.
But they don't have much announced for that. I mean, Kenny is going to wrestle Brian Cage, so I'm sure he'll likely get involved in that, perhaps, like in terms of like fending off.
Yeah.
But that's another one. Should Kenny Omega have like a 20-minute match with Brian freaking Cage?
No. But I wouldn't be shocked if we're having the similar conversation, but like a more amplified version of it. Because Kenny should.
Also, that's like 2-3 minutes.
Kenny's a strong guy. Can he one-winged angel Cage? I mean, he has to, I guess, right?
Good question.
Maybe that's like hey, I'm back. Let me do it to Cage. And Cage is down, obviously. Cage seems like all in all a pretty down guy on lots of stuff. Eating a lot of poop sandwiches, it seems. So, but yeah, it should be like a Wardlow versus 2 guys type of match.
Yeah. Andrew H. And a big shout out to him who he subscribed as a member to our Brash Ring Media Gold membership tier, which is the highest level tier. So, Andrew, thank you so much, and appreciate you, man. And obviously, great to have you as a member, and great to have you upgraded. So, thank you.
And are you a Nebraska fan, Andrew? I guess I've never seen your logo thing.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen it up close like that before either. But
let us know. Big Ten guys got to stick together.
Andrew says here, 8V triggers, 1-winged angel ball game. Yeah, man. That's the thing. I totally agree. Like that's how you do it. And that'd be like a fun. Like that's how you build momentum around some guys like Omega. Like just have them go out there and just destroy them and have that be it. Sometimes that's all you need. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. Oh, it says here, die hard Nebraska fan, born and raised. Nice. Yeah, Big Ten. Stick together. Thanks, Andrew. If you're interested in that gold membership tier, you can find it over on Patreon, patreon.com/Brash Ring Media. We do have our regular, grab the Brash Ring tier, which is only $4 a month. So you can test us out doing that as well. Same place, patreon.com/Brash Ring Media. Thanks so much, Andrew. All right, last topic that I have for you today before we wrap up, MJF and Jeff Jarrett.
Okay, man, good. I was like, we got to talk about this.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you go. You go first. I've gone first on most of this stuff.
I surprisingly love this. Yes. And it's insane. But this is kind of pro wrestling booking 101. A guy who's not been on TV a lot, hasn't been shoved down our throats, and Jeff Jarrett goes out there, does his thing. You do the classic, he doesn't even get a chance. It's like the guy at the Rumble. What was his name? McGillicuddy, right? He still is bound to enter one of these Rumbles. because he got beat up and
That's
no one
Curtis
got to replace him,
Axel
right?
to you, my friend.
Yeah, Curtis Axel. What was his name? Mike McGillicuddy back then? Or was
Yes.
it Curtis Axel then?
In what was like truly the worst wrestling name ever. Like Mike McGillicuddy? Like,
yeah,
are you
Mr.
freaking kidding me?
Mr. Imperfect himself.
Yes.
But sorry, off the rails on that one. But Jarrett coming out there, you think like, okay, this is like a shot on TV. Doesn't matter. He gets taken out by Wheeler Yuta. Like, great heat for Yuta and like something he needs. All that was great. And he's in there and like MJF comes out and like it fits because like MJF needs a guy to get heat opposite of. And like the most perfect use of Jeff Jarrett in 2025 is like this idea of some crazy run that really nobody wants. And MJF to be the one to call it out, but like the fans being behind Jeff Jarrett and like a way to naturally get heat on MJF that's like forcing MJF to be a different type of heel. Like even in that promo with MJF when he's out there and it's good when he's opposite of a guy who's over in Tennessee, right? They're in Clarksville. That's where they were.
There we go.
Yes.
You got there.
So I just like that, like makes MJF pivot as a character, which is the key thing, right? He's the top guy in the equation long term. And it forces him to not just do his normal heel shtick. He's there in person. Like MJF's going to win, get over as a heel. And, the whole thing of like, hey, I want my title back, but if you win it, then I want the first shot because I know it can beat you. Like, I like that level of scummy heel that's like thinking a couple steps ahead and like why this matters to him. Because like he didn't care. You could tell that character, whether MJF, the person, did or not, he didn't care at all about the Diamond Ring, Adam Cole. You see his heart's not in it. His heart seems more into this story as like a character.
Totally.
So like all that's great. Jarrett plays it perfectly. Yeah, I mean, it was like, what a shock to be like, imagine telling me like December 15th, like, hey, after Cole, MJF's going to be working with Jeff Jarrett. I'd be like, oh my God, what? Like, we got to shut the promotion down. But surprisingly, it's, well, I mean, it's like, it's like, and for me, sorry, this is not going through Revolution. This is not like a big time story that goes on forever, I don't think. But it gets him ready for that next big pay-per-view match. Because, like, AEW's better when Kenny Omega's in a big-time match, when the world title is important, when MJF's in a big-time match. Probably also, this made me think a lot about how good it is that Chris Jericho's not on television. Because I think, like, if you wait till the summer and Chris Jericho comes back on TV regularly, I think you could get, like, a lot of – this could be a template for him as a character on the last legs. Yeah. And that was, like, another thing in the back of my head as well. So go ahead, Zach.
No. I mean, I can't even add too much. I loved it too, and I went into it like so not wanting to love it because it was Jeff Jarrett, and I rolled my eyes at him, and somehow he's collecting game checks and management checks within AEW right now. The guy is a king.
He's a role model. If I'm a pro wrestler, I want to be Jeff Jarrett, not
100%,
not Ricky Steamboat, not whatever. Anyone you can, Bryan Danielson. I want to be Jeff freaking Jarrett.
Jeff freaking Jarrett, man. I mean, seriously, like, and you know what? He was good in this segment, and he was good by like not doing anything. Like, I think like he knew, like he's kind of like Sting in that regard. Like, Sting's best stuff is when he doesn't do that much. He doesn't cut a 10-minute promo in the ring. And Jeff Jarrett, like, he understands the wrestling business. So like, there's a lot to say about Jeff Jarrett, no question about it. But I think in this scenario, he's sitting back going, well, I got the best talker in the game opposite me as a heel. I'm just going to let him do all the work, and then I'm going to say no at the end, and the crowd's going to pop, and I'm going to leave, and then I'm going to be more over than I've been in the last decade. Like, and that's where it is. Andrew says here, 200 wrestlers on the roster, we somehow land on Jeff Jarrett. Yeah. And I want to also point out, Andrew, that we've talked about Jeff Jarrett, yes, but also Michael McGillicuddy and Headbangers on today's show. So who would have thought? Yeah. But yeah, like this works. This works for like a little like TV program for MJF. And you're going to get something out of Jeff Jarrett here more than you really have any right to. And it's going to be on the shoulders of MJF and that's okay. And that's okay. I mean, I think like the bigger like shock is like, man, if you would have told me a year ago, like, hey, there's going to be a promo segment between MJF and Jeff Jarrett that's better than anything MJF and Adam Cole did, I'd be like, you're nuts, man. Like what are you smoking? Like pass some of that this way, because like I'd be like, there's just no way. And this like screams to you just how awkward and bad that Cole stuff was, because as soon as you take MJF out of that and place him into something else, he instantly became more effective and more fun to watch.
Yeah. And like after this too, like I'm having like Jeff, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm having Jeff and Adam Cole like attached at the hip, not forever, like as character, but like I want, I guess who's Danny Garcia's TNT champion currently, but like whenever there's a heel, I want basically this story replicated of like Adam Cole saying everything that's true, right? Like all the trials, the injuries, personal life issues, and like I need to just like win something and like cut a promo like this and win a secondary title and start getting over again before you're the ROH champion, because that's like the two paths for him. And so it's like good on that front too, of like what you can do, build yourself up, because Jeff Jarrett was an absolute nothing. Like it's hard for anyone to come back from the Jeff Hardy Texas Chainsaw Massacre match. That's one of the worst things besides the Cole and MJF stuff I think AEW's done, like per capita.
Yeah.
For like a long extended segment. So the fact that you have both those guys potentially that could work together and make something good come out of it is a positive sign for wrestling, and why like you're never truly dead as long as the promotion gives you time and the crowd cares about you at all. So
I think it speaks to just MJF as a heel too. I mean, like that dude can work a microphone, and he got Jeff Jarrett more over in like 5 minutes than he's been in a long, long time. Yeah. All right, you guys, on that note, we're going to head into the weekend. Thanks so much for joining us today on the show. Appreciate it. It's good to see a bunch of new faces that joining up. We had some really fun conversation between Andrew, of course, but also Fernando and Zach and Maria and Ken was in there, Spark, Adrian. So really, really fun. And thanks for checking the show out. Once again, you can find all of our membership options for Brass Ring Media over on Patreon, patreon.com/BrassRingMedia. And if you want to check out our written work that we do on a day-to-day basis, that's on Substack. Just search Brass Ring Media Substack and you'll find that. Of course, if you need to take our shows here that are live on the road, you can sign up, just subscribe for free to the Brass Ring Media podcast on your favorite podcast app. Tomorrow morning, you're not going to want to miss it. The Kick Ash podcast with Ashley Manns. Just a great show. She has like such a good tone and just has such a fun time just talking with viewers, managing the live chat, hanging out. So jump on in with that. That's tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. She'll be reviewing SmackDown, of course, but also talking a little bit of AEW Dynamite too. So that's the Kick Ash podcast tomorrow morning, right here on the One True Sport YouTube channel, live from Brass Ring Media. Thank you, everybody. Tyler, any final words?
Yeah, just congrats to Will Hobbs getting an opportunity. I think that's definitely first world title shot he's had. He's not going to win, but that was, I thought, in a bad match. Obviously, that's always a bad match the way it's set up. I just hate the gimmick of that whole casino gauntlet thing. But I did not think Will Hobbs was going to win, so excited to see that for him.
I'm glad you brought that up. I am too. I think Hobbs. Yeah, it's a moment for him. Like he's not going to win, but I think he could turn some heads. I think he could turn some heads with a good performance and a good match. I hope he does. It's a fresh face, like too. We've seen Cassidy hover around. We've seen these kind of guys, Darby. Like this is like a different kind of fresh face. And so, I think
he's still only 33. So like Bobby Lashley's 50. So just think about that.
Plenty of time. Good call. Yeah, I'm glad. We'll talk more about him next week too after the title match. But Everybody, thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Have a good rest of your Friday. Appreciate you. Appreciate your support. This is the Brash Ring Media Podcast. I'm Zach. That's Tyler. We'll catch you guys really, really soon. See ya.